Welcome to the Underground, the Steel City Underground, the black and gold standard for Pittsburgh Steelers coverage. Now, here's your host, Brian E. Roach.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Steel City Underground podcast. My name is Brian E. Roach, the host with a flashy chest. Yes, my chest is flashing. We are sponsored in part this week by FOCO, and they have provided us with this lovely sweater for you to view and peruse. You should head over to FOCO.com to get all of your collectible, wearable, variety of merchandise, and in fact, that little intro song was being played over my sweater. That's right, so I can walk around in this sweater, which is very nice and warm and comfortable. It's not itchy at all, and I think is quite beautiful and not ugly at all. And I can make noise come out of my sweater like this. I was going to play Renegade, but the theory is that Styx will be mad and sue me, and maybe these guys won't. Okay. Anyway, it's the week after. We've now gone through Rocky Gate and X-Ray Gate and Ben Gate and Raider Gate, and I don't know what other gates may have occurred over the past few days. But the point being that a lot has transpired in a short amount of time. When Zach Meckler and I, the professor of football, and when we went ahead and did the post game, essentially we didn't know everything. We knew what had been said at the end of the game. We knew what Tomlin had said in his press conference, and we knew Ben hadn't shown up for a while. One of our Steel City Underground fellow undergrounders had suggested maybe it was a pain shot, and until the pain shot took effect, Ben couldn't go in. Turns out that may have been correct. It also turns out that part of the delay was the X-ray equipment at the Oakland Coliseum, if that's in fact what was there. It all kind of just transpired to make a bad circumstance. Now, there's going to be conspiracy theorists out there who are going to say, oh, this is all a lie. It's designed to protect Mike Tomlin. Mike Tomlin, may have misspoke, but, look, he basically was telling what may have been the truth at the time. Maybe he could have gone in, but maybe he wasn't fully comfortable. Maybe there was still pain. And if, in fact, the X-ray machine wasn't good enough to give you an indication of whether he had a broken rib, a cracked rib, or just bruised ribs, then, I guess realistically, you kind of have to err on the side of caution. I don't know that you want to put Ben in a situation where if he gets a hit in the same spot, the rib actually moves, fractures worse, could puncture a lung. You don't want to be in that situation. So there is a degree of caution that goes along with what they chose to do there. Okay. I'm not going to regurgitate this game for long. But, it is important to, I think, look at where they stand now and what has transpired since, So that's the rib gate, the X-ray gate, the Ben gate, right? Ben didn't play. Turns out he had a bruised rib or several bruised ribs. Not sure when he got them, probably on the one hit. And when he did come back in, he performed fine. And so there's concern that maybe, he couldn't have. Now, I'm going to turn the lights off for a second just for the fun of it, because it may have been distracting, the blinking lights. Anyway, so on top of that, you've got former Steelers like Rocky Bleier who are saying that they are done with this team. And I get it. A lot of Steelers Nation has said the same thing. Every one of us gets frustrated when the team doesn't perform up to what our expectations for the team are. We get frustrated when they lose to teams we absolutely know we are superior to. But I want to take a second and look at this loss because, there are certain parts of it that I think you can put squarely on the shoulders of the Steelers. And maybe the coaching, and then there are certain things that you can't. one of the people I will give, zero responsibility to is Ben. Ben played a solid game. No picks, 130-point rating, 2 TDs, got them in position to stay in the game, got them in position to tie the game at the end of the game. I'm not even going to put responsibility for this loss on Boswell, even though, he missed some field goals. But, look, when you go to plant and your plant foot slips, and I've heard people say, well, you need to be more delicate with you can't. If you go try and kick a field goal, if you've never been to Fan Fest or Fan Blitz at Heinz Field, where you get the opportunity to try and kick a field goal, go through the motions. Just walk out in your yard, go through the motions of kicking a field goal. When you are approaching the kick, the plant is incredibly important. It's part of what gives you the ability to drive the ball. You can't decide to pop up there and do a 48-yard field goal and delicately plant your foot. That's a ridiculous comment. The fact is the turf in that field is terrible. Everybody has been saying it. There was speculation about it all throughout. And yes, the Raiders have to play on the same turf, but guess what? The Raiders know what that turf's like. They know what cleats to use. They know how to adjust to it. They probably also know the spots in the field where it's the worst and how to avoid those things. It's their home field. It's a true home field advantage. Is it why they lost? It's part of why they lost. Sure, Boswell missed that field goal, but I can't blame him for missing a field goal when the man puts his foot down and it goes out from under him. I can't put that blame on him. Has he been inconsistent this year? Absolutely. Is it warranted for the Steelers to consider other options? Absolutely, it's warranted. Will they find a better option? I don't know. Tomlin talked in his press conference this week about seeking competition or seeking other options, which means probably they're going to have some kicker tryouts, and they're going to kick against Chris Boswell in Heinz Field. Look, if kicking against Chris Boswell in Heinz Field, if they're better, then they probably deserve the job. But it gives him a chance to also keep his job, which I think is fair as well. Kickers are up and down, man. They have... there's a weird hinkiness there. So anyway, they're addressing that issue. The other gate here, the other rest of this game, because we weren't quite done with that. I still can't get past the timeouts. I can forgive Tomlin for not putting Ben back in, which I originally had a fit about in the post game, and I can get past that. If, in fact, what has been bandied about this week is true, I can understand you have to show some level of caution when you don't know what the injury is, right? You don't know how severe it is. And you need the pain medication to kick in because, Ben not going to be able to throw the ball if he's in agony trying to move his arm. So I can get past that, but I'm still having a problem with the timeouts. To me, and I know Joe and Zach talked about this in an edition of the Daily Steelers Grind, and I fall on the side that Zach fell on. To me, there's no way for the Raiders to get a first down other than through defensive pass interference, right? So they have essentially only a couple plays, right? And in my mind, go ahead and call those timeouts early and give yourself a better shot. Now, think about this scenario playing out. If they've got, there was almost 2 minutes when the Raiders, got the first down inside the red zone. It was under 2 minutes, like a minute and 47 seconds or something like that. And no, we didn't call timeout. Well, then it drifted down to, well under that, then under a minute and so on. And by the time the Steelers get the ball back, they have 15 seconds to get in position to tie the game. What if that 15 seconds is a minute and 10 seconds? What if that 15 seconds is a minute and 20 seconds? Ben can work a lot of magic in a minute and 20 seconds. And even if you discount the fact that if they'd done that, they wouldn't have probably run the hook and ladder play that worked so well because it wasn't desperation time, Ben seemed to have no problem getting down the field in just the drive before. So The play calling could have been different, but so could the outcome. Instead of going down there to try and get a game-tying field goal, in a minute and 20 seconds, you're more likely to drive down to try and get a game-winning touchdown. And you've certainly got more opportunities to do so, even with no timeouts left, right? Because you burn them to save clock. I have a problem with that. I will put that on Tomlin's shoulders. And I will say, in my mind, that's a mistake. But, again, I'm not getting paid to coach the Steelers, and nobody's offering me the job. If they did, I'd take it in a second. I have no qualifications to coach the Steelers. But, you want to call me, hey, I'm here. I'll take it. I just don't get that decision. And I listened to the press conference. They asked Tomlin about it. I heard his reasoning. I don't get it. I don't agree with it. So I'm, as much as I hate to say this, I will put the blame for this loss on Mike Tomlin's shoulders, because I think that's a big part of it. Yes, there's a lot of things that are out of his control. The execution of the players is out of Mike Tomlin's control. The field and the slippage and Ben getting injured, all out of Mike Tomlin's control. What is not out of Mike Tomlin's control is deciding how to use his timeouts most effectively, and I don't think he did that. I think it was absolutely a bad decision, and ultimately, because of how the rest of the game played out, cost them this game. Again, you can't say everything leading up to it had no impact, but you're in a position at the end of the game, you've got timeouts, you've got time on the clock, you've got a Hall of Fame quarterback, you've got Hall of Fame receiver, you've got another receiver in his second year who's going nuts. You've got a chance to win the game if you conserve time, and you chose not to. I question Tomlin's time management often. In this instance, I absolutely think you can say that based on how the game played out, it ended up costing them the game. I don't think that's unrealistic to say. Does that warrant Tomlin being fired? No, absolutely not. Coaches make bad decisions all the time, all across the boards. And fluky things happen all the time. It's a fluky thing that Chris Boswell's foot goes out from under him, just like it's a fluky thing that the Dolphins manage a hook and ladder or a weird lateral play to win the game against the Patriots. Oh, my God, Bill Belichick wasn't prepared for this crazy lateral thing. They should fire Bill Belichick immediately. He lost to the Dolphins. He lost to the Lions. It's horrible. He should be fired. No. Nobody's doing that because, of course, Belichick has won several Super Bowls and has had a consistently solid record. But let's also be realistic. Mike Tomlin has had a consistently solid record and continues to have a winning record. When he starts to have consistent losing records, then it's going to be time to have that conversation about time to move on. And I've been wanting to have this conversation for a while, so I'm going to get into it, even though it's going to drive people nuts. There are several people, some of whom I respect very much, some of whom I think are wonderful human beings, who believe that it's win or you're done. If you can't win Super Bowl every year, then you should be fired, or at least that is an opinion that they float at times, right? And I want to address how ridiculous that concept is in my mind. This is my opinion, right? And my opinion is that such a philosophy is flashy like crazy, all right? And here's why. There's only one team that can win the Super Bowl every year. And if your team were to win the Super Bowl every year, your favorite sport would be destroyed because people would stop watching. If the same team always won. And I know people think, oh, the Patriots. The Patriots don't always win. They've won 5. And it's been over a large span of years, okay? Yes, they've been consistently good, but they do not consistently win every year. The Steelers have been consistently good, but they do not win every year. Yes, they've won less than the Patriots. But you cannot expect a team to win a championship every year. If they did, everybody else would just give up and go, this is pointless. They're always going to win, and the ratings really would drop for any game that wasn't a Steelers game. And even the Steelers game's ratings would drop until we got into the playoffs. Because who cares, right? They're going to win. Oh, they're going to win. Oh, they're going to win another championship. It would ruin the game. So that's an unrealistic expectation in my mind. And I think we all know that. I think that's stating the obvious. We all know that they can't win every year. But they do compete, and that is their goal every year. And I think that's good and the right philosophy. And yes, there will be years where it doesn't work out. More years that it doesn't work out than years that it does. That's just the way it is. And yes, that means you're going to squander some of your Hall of Fame quarterbacks' years, technically, because you're not going to win championships during those years. But is it, again, it's unrealistic to say you're squandering these years. You can't win it every single year. The Steelers have been consistently solid, good in most years. They're in the playoffs during Ben's tenure. This year, I don't know what's going to happen yet. But there's a chance this year is going to go the other direction. We'll talk about that in a second, too. But the notion that Tomlin should be fired simply because he hasn't won a Super Bowl every single year is nonsensical. It just is. Yes, we're all going to find reasons why we don't like the coach, but guess what? It doesn't matter what coach it is. There were people who wanted Chuck Noll's head, and he lost games, and he had down seasons. And Bill Cowher only won once, too. And, he had a lot of AFC championships failures. I can't imagine what it would have been like if Twitter had existed when Cowher was around. We want to vent our frustrations, and we tend to want to blame people, and we tend to want to call on the coach to be fired, but that's not realistic in this instance. I think Mike Tomlin, for the most part, does a good job. I don't think he's lost the team. At my mind, that is when someone like the Rooneys and ownership needs, if you've lost the team, completely lost the team, that's when somebody needs to step in and say, that's it. We got to make a change because you've lost the team. That's not the case here. Mike Tomlin has never lost this team. We may not agree with the way he does things. Some people may not agree with the way he deals with discipline. But here's the other things. We don't know what goes on behind closed doors there. We have no idea. Players are players, and they all kind of act a little wacky at times, especially some of the more diva-like players. Okay, so I think we can say, yes, I can put blame on Mike Tomlin for this loss. No, I don't think that means he needs to be fired. But what if the season plans out and the Steelers aren't in the playoffs? Still don't know that I think Mike Tomlin needs to be fired. I think they need to then look at some things seriously, which would be defensive coordinator and maybe some other positional coaches, and try and get some sense of where are the actual problems. And Joe and I have talked about this ad nauseum, and Trey has also mentioned this in Trey's Corner at various times. Coaches coach, but players execute. And if players don't execute effectively, the coaches have nothing to do with that. They can do their best to force these guys, to teach these guys, but if the lessons don't get learned, yes, it's a failure in coaching, but sometimes a failure in coaching is a failure in learning from the player. So it's hard to say it's all the coach's fault and make those changes. Here's what I honestly think. I think they took a risk on Artie Burns, and I think that it has not panned out. As a result, their secondary is suspect and has been suspect for several years. They have not had great success in developing corners. That's flip-sided by the fact that they've had fantastic success in developing wide receivers. It's hit and miss here. And remember, they're drafting at the bottom, the lower parts of the draft every year because they're consistently good. And that means you're not getting the top-level picks. And I know everybody wants trades and they want the excitement, but the Steelers are not a franchise that is going to mortgage their future in order for one piece. There has to be a partner as well. They tried to move up in last year's draft. So I believe that solidly. They tried to move up to get an inside linebacker, and they simply couldn't find a trading partner that was willing to accept what they had to offer. Remember, you have to have something that the other side wants. They have to be willing to move. It just doesn't always work out that way. Otherwise, you're going to massively overpay. And when you massively overpay for things, down the road, it ends up biting you. So they're not going to do those things. If they can make it work, they will. So when we look at the rest of this season, we have the Patriots game this week. We know what the Patriots game is, right? We know in our minds as fans, we believe solidly that the Patriots are in the Steelers' head, and that until they get that monkey off their back, it's going to be hard for them to beat the Patriots. The Patriots are a good team. Are they as good as they have been in the past? No, I don't think they're as good as they were last year. Although they're better right now than they were earlier in the season because Josh Gordon is there, which gives them a weapon that they did not have. Gronkowski is coming back, looks appear to be more healthy. That gives them a weapon they did not have when he was injured earlier in the season. But their running game stinks, and their defense stinks. It is getting a little better, but it's still, not a great defense. The Steelers should be able to score on the Patriots. This should be a Chiefs-Patriots-like game in some instances. But the Steelers' defense is better than the Chiefs' defense. And the Steelers' defense should be able to get some stops against Brady and company. So, it should be viable for them to have a realistic chance in this game. I'm not giving up on this game. It's in Heinz Field. Jesse caught it last year. They actually won that game. Nobody can tell me any differently. And you can try all you want. But Jesse caught it. This is the way we are, right? I'm not giving up on that. I'm never going to let it go. Neither is Joe. Neither are many Steelers fans. Jesse caught it. They beat the Patriots last year, and it was stolen from them. This year it's going to be different in my view. This year, they're just going to flat out win. Is that a guarantee? Absolutely not. I can't guarantee. I have no control over these things, right? But I absolutely believe they're going to win this game Sunday. And if they do, maybe this is a Bears, Bettis, Urlacher springboard. And I know that's been said by others as well. I said it before. Maybe that's what they need as a way to push them to say, all right, we put our backs against the wall. Now it's time to get our backs out of the wall. And here's why their backs are against the wall. They have 3 games left, as do the Ravens and the Browns. And I'm going to throw the Bengals in the trash because they're trash. The Browns are a resurgent team right now, right? They beat the whoever they played last week. Oh, the Panthers. They beat the Panthers last week, which not everybody thought they would. The Panthers seem to have gone absolutely atomic and blown themselves completely up. And the Ravens their defense is better. They very nearly beat the Chiefs in Kansas City. So the Ravens, I believe, have games against the Browns, a game against the Chargers, and I can't remember off the top of my head who they play this week. But one of those games is a game that they probably are going to win, and I think it's the one this week. And I don't remember who it is. It's lost in my head. So there's a good chance, though, that the Ravens could win all 3 games they have left or 2 out of 3. They have the Chargers in San Diego. That's going to be a little tougher, but I'm not 100% sold on the Chargers either. And you saw what that defense did to the Chiefs. If they can do that to the Chargers, they can beat the Chargers. The Browns already beat the Ravens once this year, and they're playing better than they did earlier in the season. The Browns could beat them at the end of the year. Let's for all sake, all I don't know, just grins, stuff and grins. Let's just say that the Raiders win, or not the Raiders, the Ravens win this week, and they lose in San Diego. I did it again. They lose in Los Angeles to the Chargers, and they win against the Browns because it's in Baltimore this time. So let's say that they manage that. That makes them, 10-6. Is that right? No, 9-7. 9-7. And if that's the case, well, it's one of those two. I can't remember. No, yeah, 9-7. 9-7. So that makes them 9-7. That means the Steelers have to have 9 wins. They have 7 wins, so they'd have to win two more games. They'll have a half-game lead because they have that tie. So at 9-6-1, that puts them ahead of 9-7. They also, that's a strong position to be in. And if the Ravens slip and they lose 2 out of those last 3 games, then the Steelers only have to win 1 game as well. But I don't actually anticipate that happening. I think that there's a better chance that the Ravens win out than there is that the Ravens lose out. And more than likely, I think they win 2 out of 3, which means the Steelers got to win 2 out of 3. And I'll say that they can win the Bengals game in Heinz Field at the end of the year. That means they got to win either this week at Heinz Field or they got to go to New Orleans, another place they don't play well, and win in New Orleans against a team that, is one of the top 2 teams in the NFC this year. It's a tough road, much tougher road than the Ravens have. I think they can win this week. I think they can win against the Bengals. And I think as long as they do that, I think that they'll win their division. Certainly no guarantee. The other possibility is if both the Ravens and the Steelers lose out, folks, you could be looking at the AFC North champion Cleveland Browns, especially if the Browns were to win out. Crazy as that may sound, they have a shot, and they have to know they have a shot right now. So I know the Browns play the Ravens in the last week. I don't remember who they're playing this week, and I don't remember who they're playing next week, and I'd have to look it up. And it's much harder to do on video as opposed to do when we're just recording the audio for these podcasts. So I'm not going to do that, but I think that they can win. I think they play the Broncos this week. And if they play the Broncos this week, I think that's a game that they can win with the way they've been playing. But it is the Browns, and they're a young team. They can make mistakes, and this is a big challenge for them. But they've got to be psyched. I'm glad we don't have to play them the last game of the year, being honest. I'd much rather play the Bengals, who I think probably have given up, as opposed to the Browns. And yes, I know when we get to that last game of the year, the Bengals are going to be like, we want to spoil your season, if there's a chance they can spoil the season. So I guess the point of this particular podcast is to say twofold things, is to address what's gone on since the game ended on Sunday, and to say, don't give up hope, nation, yet. Yes, it's darkest before the dawn, right? It is looking ahead. It is a tough road for the Steelers to have to follow to get to the promised land. But it is still possible. And I don't care what anybody says. Once you're in the tournament, this team has proved in the past it doesn't matter where they're at. I think the worst situation is they're 4th. Because I think if they don't win their division, I don't think they're in the playoffs, okay? That's my view. I can be wrong. They could still slide in. But I think they end up at worst, the 4th seed. Well, worst is out. But I think they have a good chance to be the 4th seed as a division winner, which means they will play at home one game and then be on the road probably the rest of the way unless another wild card team wins. And so that's it. It's still possible. This is still potentially a year where they can get to the big dance and win the big dance. A lot of work for them to do and a lot of things for them to address, and it'll be much more difficult if they're not healthy and ready to go. So let's just keep our fingers crossed. In the meantime, let's not give up on the season. And yeah, I'm trying to turn the lights back on here. Hold on a second. And there you go. Let's not give up on the season because it's not over yet. It's close, but not yet. And as we go on out, let's see if this works. Apparently not. Okay. I lost my feed on my phone. So to just say it, here we go. And in case you haven't checked them out, go to the sponsor, go to FOCO. Find yourself one of these lovely Steelers sweaters. Wear it proudly through the holiday season. Annoy your friends and neighbors at your holiday parties with the flashing lights. Play Renegade over the speaker or whatever you choose to play. And, until next time, my name is Brian Roach, the host who doesn't like toast, but who has a flashy chest. And as I always say, it's chaos out there, so be kind.
We would like to thank you for listening and remind our listeners to follow us on social media and our website, www.steelcityunderground.com.